everybody. Welcome to the PVD Horror Podcast. My name is Dave. I'm joined here with my co-host, as always, Brandon. And we have two special guests joining us to talk about an upcoming project that is going to be releasing just in time for Halloween and the spooky season. I'm talking about John Kelley and Francesco Loschiavo. And I only messed it up because I was nervous and anxious about it. So I knew how to say your name. So they work together on a project called Tales from the Void, which is a six-tale anthology series, I guess you would say, that's going to be releasing on Screambox. But I will let them tell us all the gory details about that project. John, Francesco, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having us. You killed the pronunciation. Very few people get that right, so nailed it.
Thank you. We'll pretend I didn't practice that before you get on.
Right, sounds good.
Yeah, thank you for having us, guys.
Of course.
No problem.
So just to start off, I have to just acknowledge this amazing connection. So, John, you are a hometown guy. You are from Rhode Island. You are actually literally like minutes away from us right now, which is amazing. And, kind of like right before we started recording, we were just talking about how funny it is that the person who connected you to us is actually Toby Poser of the Adams family, who's a New York resident. So it took someone from New York to actually connect a bunch of Rhode Islanders together. So that's really cool. But I wanted to hear a little bit about kind of your experience as a Rhode Island horror guy, and just telling us like some of your favorite things about Rhode Island and the horror scene.
Oh, amazing. Yeah, amazing. Yeah, I was gonna say I'm not sure what that says about the Rhode Island film scene that it takes a New Yorker to connect us all, but yeah. But yeah, no, I mean, I think Toby is super nice. Like, I think I was telling you guys a little bit earlier off mic, but she kind of was a big when we were kind of connecting after at film festivals and stuff, and she was like, look, I've done a bunch of stuff with the PVD horror guys and they're like super nice, and it was like, oh, like I'm aware of them, but I don't think I've ever met them before. And she was like, well, they're fantastic and you should definitely talk to them. And she was super kind and connected us. But so like major shout out and props to her and John, who are both just like super nice and kind and generous collaborators. Like like they are legit some of the nicest people you'll meet in this industry. But yeah, in terms of the Rhode Island like film community, I have very fond feelings about what we kind of do in Rhode Island. I think there's a lot of cool stuff both on the film side and the horror side. I think on the horror front, there's a lot of cool stuff around Lovecraft, which is quite interesting. I know they do the Necronomicon every year. Invariably there are controversies that arise around that every once in a while, and they're typically pretty well deserved, but I think that the people who run that for the most part do a really good job. I have a lot of respect for like Phil Gillette, who's like a big part of that, and I believe he's actually a pretty good screenwriter in his own right. And then I think the film scene of Rhode Island's really healthy. I think it's healthy because you've got a fantastic tax credit that helps bring productions locally, which is really nice. And I think the film community is quite nice too. I think obviously you have like the Riff Film Festival, but I think also like there are, it recently shut down, but I think the Scene Film Festival, which for years was kind of a really good proponent of like promoting specifically local indie filmmakers, did a really good job of, I think, building a community here in ways that like, I've lived in other cities before. Like I've lived in New York, I've lived in various places in Connecticut, Massachusetts. And I think the film community here is a little bit more, it feels homegrown and it feels vibrant in a way that you don't get in a lot of other cities that are similarly sized to Providence, partially because of the work that I think, festivals like that do.
Yeah. One more Rhode Island based question, then I won't ask anymore.
Oh, of course.
What are some of your favorite Rhode Island spots? Just some shout outs for the local listeners.
Oh, amazing. Okay. So I'm a big, all right. So where do I want to start? So I think for Italian food, you can't go wrong in Federal Hill, but that's like a very cheap and easy answer. So I'm going to give you a little bit of a different one.
There you go.
Which is, I live in Lincoln, which is a little bit outside the city, and Trattoria Romana is a pretty good spot. Like it's.
How have you not taken me there? How many times have I come to Rhode Island, and not taking me for Italian? Are you kidding?
Yeah, I know that is my fault. That is 100% my fault. The next time you come down, I'm going to take you. I
You've
know
only
we
taken him to get fast food. Is that the
We
case?
had home cooking the last like 2 or 3
Oh,
times.
well, that's not bad
okay.
either. Though.
That's not bad.
Yeah.
He did make a mean burger.
Yeah, I make a mean smash burger. But yeah, no, Trattoria Romana is legit if you want Italian food kind of outside of Providence.
Yeah.
In Providence, I really enjoy. I'm trying to think about. I think Pizza J is legit. Like,
Yeah,
you
man,
know,
Pizza J's a spot right there. Yeah.
yeah, that's really good. In terms of like a good place to get a drink, Wild Colonial is fantastic.
There you go.
That's yeah.
Yeah,
That's like all my 20s and maybe before that. Yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say, yeah, there's a million bad decisions made at Wild
Yes.
Colonial, but also the first date with my wife was there, so
Awesome.
can't complain. And then I'm trying to think about other. And then in terms of coffee, I think Coffee Exchange is really good. And then like Dave's Coffee, I think I used to like Dave's Coffee a lot more than I do now. It's a bit of a challenge time wise now because they've really cut their hours down. But like Coffee Exchange was legit for a long time. I really like them.
Those are great answers, man. That's awesome. Yeah. I love those shout outs too. That's some great spots.
Those are my Rhode Island bona fides. Yeah.
So I got to ask both of you, and I'll let Francesco take the lead on this. Can you give us a little bit of your backgrounds in film, and also kind of what brought you two together to work on Tales of the Void?
Yeah, I've been making films, either friends films or producing or writing and directing for about 10 years. I kind of got into film like a little after university. I started going to more festivals and just seeing, I would say like independent or European cinema, which kind of like really opened my eyes that you can do lots of different things with film. I feel like I'd just seen like Hollywood formula films kind of growing up. But I was always like, lived at Blockbuster in my teenage years and stuff. But it wasn't until like I saw stuff that was a little bit different than what I grew up on that like kind of got me into filmmaking and excited about it. And then, I lived in England for a while, and they have a really good kind of like arts community there. A lot of great writers, a lot of support for kind of local filmmaking. There was like I think like they have this network. It's a weird name for a social network, but it's called Shooting People. And it's like literally with like a 3-block radius in London. That's just all people that are making short films every weekend. And you just kind of like post, hey, I need a sound guy, I need a whatever. And it was just kind of like indie film school. And I went to film school out there. And I started doing like shorts for friends. And I think I was like scared to direct or write. And then John and I met through a website called, I think, Trigger Street, which no longer exists, which was embarrassingly tied to Kevin Spacey, I think.
Yeah. And problems noted.
Yeah, I think it's similar to like a cover fly where you can like post your scripts and you get feedback. And I had read one of John's comedies, and it was like the first thing I read that like made me laugh out loud, multiple times. And then he sent me some of his horror stuff, and we had this like cabin in the woods horror with like 4 people, and I was like, my buddy has a cabin. We kind of just bootstrapped it and did a film with like no money. And I think once we did that, I kind of like caught the bug and did a couple documentaries while I was in England. And then this show, I've had this idea since like 2016, and I think it was just building the confidence to make films. And having worked with a lot of my friends and kind of seen projects that are successful and ones that weren't, I kind of realized like, I don't know, I can do this too. I don't have to be the guy kind of on the sideline, so to speak. So I started talking to John about it, and we decided to take a crack at this. We started reading some stories on Reddit, and I had said like, I think there's a lot of interesting stuff on here that could be a potential for a TV series, and that's kind of how this all started.
It's awesome.
I just want to jump in that there's a program in London called Shooting People. We have a program in the States called Shooting People too. It's just very different and a little less organized. Yeah, that's my dark joke for the day.
So now Back in 2010, the No Sleep forum was created on Reddit. Can you guys tell the listeners what No Sleep is all about?
Yeah, so it started, I had to do a bit of looking into this when we were researching the show, but like it basically started as like somebody posted on Reddit, what's your scariest story, real or fake? I just want to be creeped out, post your story.
Mm.
And the thread kind of went viral. And then somebody had said, well, we should make this a subreddit. And they made it No Sleep. And then it quickly became a very rule-based oriented community around writing where independent writers can post stories, multiple chapter stories, short form stories, kind of any format. And there's a couple of rules to the community, but the big one is that you tend to write it in first person as if it like happened to you. And a lot of the comments kind of continue the story where people ask questions and you respond in character. And it's been going for, like 10 years now. The No Sleep podcast is a huge international podcast, and they were adapting No Sleeps for a long time. And I think Ryan Reynolds' production company bought a bunch of stories from there. Steven Spielberg's has Channel Zero was based on kind of creepypastas and No Sleeps. But I think our kind of niche was like everyone went for like the long form, 10 chapter stories that could be like a whole season of a TV show or like a book. And I always liked anthology kind of horror and like short form horror. And I felt like all those short stories were just getting left behind and no one was giving them any attention. So that's where kind of we came in.
That's a very cool premise right there.
Yeah. Like you said, the No Sleep podcast is like it's on its 21st season right now, which is hosted and produced by David Cummings. Fans want to know, will David be involved in the show?
David's heavily involved in the show. Oh yeah.
Okay.
On Screambox. So first of all, David's fantastic. We've been a partner since the beginning. He kind of believed in us really early on. I think he gets all sorts of pitches about web series and stuff, and I think he saw something in us and knew we were going to take this a little bit further. I also was very persistent with him over the years. But yeah, so David's involvement. He is hosting an after the show interview with all of the No Sleep writers that airs for 5 or 10 minutes as like a post-show wrap-up. That will be released in the States on Screambox. It's part of the episode. So we actually interview the No Sleep writers about how they came up with the story and how they felt about the adaptation. He's in the show. He's an executive producer, and then he's also just launched for us a behind-the-scenes podcast that we launched yesterday. That's going to be limited to run on the No Sleep feed that talks with the directors, the No Sleep writers, some of our kind of department heads and stuff, and we're going to kind of show how we made the show. So he's been a huge supporter of us. He was on set for a couple of the episodes, has always kind of supported the direction we wanted with the show and has really helped us kind of put gasoline on the fire, so to speak.
Yeah, and I'd want to jump in and say too, like on top of all that stuff, David is just an incredibly kind individual as well. Like the adage of, don't meet your heroes does not apply to him. He is a really nice guy. He was supportive from the jump.
That's
Nice.
cool.
So now 2 episodes will premiere exclusively on Screambox every Sunday between October 13th and October 27th. How did you guys, land going with Screambox?
They were the only one who didn't give us notes. No, I'm just kidding. They were really good partners, and I think they like one of the few people who got it early on. And I think that was a big thing for us is like having a partner that understands the vision that we had for the show, the kind of dark subject matter of like the internet and like how internet horror is a little bit darker than stuff that's a little bit more commercial. I also think like, the guys that make Terrifier are gonna let us get away with a little bit more. So our show's not a like super gory, but the subject matter that we touch on is quite disturbing, and you could probably get in trouble on other kind of other networks. So that was a big thing for us, was having kind of the freedom there. And also like, I don't know how you put this, John, but I feel like they got what we were trying to do. And Brad and Brendan have been fantastic to work with.
Yeah, I think that's a really important point, is like there's a level of trust there. I think like if this show ended up being somewhere else, it would not look and feel the way that it looks and feels now.
100%.
Because like to Francesco's point, like it would have been noted to death. It would have been like, you can't do some of the things that you guys are planning on doing here. And I think, with the, Screambox team, they kind of just got like, I think Brad's a fan of the subreddit. I think that was a big part of like where his interest came in. But then B, like, I know it was said in jest, but we legitimately got 0 notes. Like they received 6 scripts and they were like, yeah, you're good. Like go to town. Which was fantastic. Like that just, both Francesco and I've been doing this a while. Like that never happens. Like you always get a boatload of notes. And that's not to say we didn't take notes. I mean, we got, we like notes. We want to workshop things. We want them to be good. We noted these things to death to just keep, sharpening iron, so to speak. Not that I would describe the episodes as ironclad, but, they definitely, are, the final version is a lot better than the first versions were, right? Like, we're open to building things out. But I think their willingness to just be like, hey, we trust you two goofballs to go off and kind of make something really cool was great.
Yeah.
Like no notes on the episodes too was crazy.
Yeah.
Like they kind of just, it was thumbs up every time we turned something in, which was kind of cool.
Wow.
Yeah.
Can I just ask a quick question for someone who's completely like oblivious to the process that it takes to like, get your show connected to something like Screambox or any kind of platform? What does that process look like? Like how many different platforms or companies do you typically reach out to and hear back from? And do you hear back from most of them, or does some just not even respond?
I think it's like the thing is, this is our first big thing, right? So like it's probably easier for other people to get stuff made quicker. We went through the full list of any logo you've seen before any horror movie, got an email or a phone call, or our sales agent reached out. So we went through a lot of different people, but there was a lot that didn't get it or wanted to radically change it or kind of make it their own, so to speak. I think like the big things that helped us getting this made was we got a small kind of grant in Canada, and we used it to film a teaser trailer, and that really showed people like that kind of, I feel like that kind of changed things, John, where people could see, oh, they can actually execute on this. Like this actually looks good. And then the other thing was we got into the Gotham in New York, which is the I think it used to be called the Independent Filmmaker Project, which is one of the big script labs. So they like Moonlight and a bunch of the Oscar winners kind of came out of there. And I think we were like one of 10 shows that got picked up, and there
were like thousands of like 4,000 or 5,000 applicants, and we were like one of like 10 people that ended up getting to go, which was virtually great. It was the pandemic, so
yeah.
So awesome. that helped a ton. And like I think with that, it was like that was a bit of a stamp that like the scripts are good, so that made a big difference. And then like Joe Lynch was a big part of this. Joe came on early, read it and got it. And I think it's funny, like the thing John and I always said is like, they know what No Sleep is. If they read the scripts, we're gonna get it. Like we think this is good. We spent 2 years writing these scripts, developing them, taking notes. And like the guy at the Gotham that picked our project loves No Sleep. Joe knew what it was. Like, so it was just finding the people that knew what we were trying to do, I think was like the hardest part. But I just kept kind of saying to John, like, there's 18 million subscribers to that forum. There's definitely somebody who knows what this is. So yeah.
And I think another big part of that too, not to put a hat on a hat, but like I think, we owe a lot to Joe. I think like Joe Lynch has a fantastic reputation in the horror community as being a nice guy, and that's very well deserved. Because he came aboard the show and read the scripts and was like, oh, I get this, and this is would love to kind of direct it. And we were like, fantastic, right? Like he's attached. And then we came back like 2 years later and we're like, hey, we're funded. We probably can't, like this, the way that you envisioned this looking 2 years ago probably is not like the way that we're going to actually be able to execute this, but would you still be on board? And he was like, yeah. And he was down to play, and he was incredibly nice. And, he was a huge part of this, I think getting made. So I think Francesco and I owe a lot to him, and we're really happy about, him sticking with us little guys and kind of elevating, elevating indie horror in a way that, you know, not
Sure.
everybody would be willing to.
Yeah.
I also, I don't know if I'm allowed to say this, but I'll say it. I think like there's a lot of people that want a check cut before they can put their name on something.
Yeah.
And like Joe was kind enough to be like, if you need to say, I'm a go on this to help you get it made, go ahead and do that. And like we had his name on everything for like 2 years, and it got the show made. It made a big difference in our ability to walk into certain rooms. Now I think, you know, if they read the scripts and the scripts are trash and, you know,
Sure.
the teaser trailer is bad, it probably doesn't happen, but like it definitely there's gatekeepers in this industry, right? And he helped us get in the door. So we owe him a lot for that.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Now, let's say some of our listeners are not subscribed to Screambox. Is there another way they can view and help support Tales from the Void?
Yeah, absolutely. It's going to be available. So it'll be on Screambox exclusively on Sundays, 2 episodes a week. And then on the Tuesday, it's available to rent or buy on everything. So it'll be Amazon,
cool.
Google Play, Apple, it'll be everywhere. So they're
Okay,
putting it
cool.
out as well. And hopefully it'll be also be on Super Channel in Canada, and then we're working on international right now. So you'll be able to find it online.
That's very cool. I love that each episode has its own like individualized poster and everything like that. I thought that was a pretty cool premise. You don't see that often for shows, you know, like anthology shows where they have that individual like attention. So I thought that was very cool.
Thanks, man. Yeah, we tried to pitch them as like individual movies because they're so different, all the episodes, and we really like let the directors run with whatever they wanted. Like we held them to the words on the page, but in terms of their kind of like creative vision, we let them go nuts. We just got good horror guys involved and said, you know, have fun. But yeah, like we wanted to pitch it as individual films because like I think other horror anthologies have done that, a couple of them, but I find the tricky thing with anthology is like if it's an hour and a half movie and I don't like one of the episodes, you kind of drop off. So we tried to keep them to be like snackable and promote them as individual films to try to see it as like a body of work. And even if one of them, you know, doesn't, you know, it doesn't drive with you as much as the other ones, they're snackable enough that you can keep going. And I think if we can get people to watch the full 6, you'll see that like kind of the ensemble is better than, you know, maybe just an appetizer, so to speak. It kind of works together, I think, quite well. So that's what we're hoping to try to do.
Yeah, I think the other thing with that too is the individual posters are kind of representative of the fact that, like, you know, each of these, you know, episodes is kind of living in a unique subgenre within the horror space. And like all credit to Francesco for this. I'm just parroting his idea right now. But essentially, like, you know, your pilot episode is a sci-fi horror episode, right? Episode 2 is like clearly an homage to 80s slashers. You know, our third episode is almost like a reverse Shallow film in many ways, right? You have like a you know, body horror episode right around body autonomy. The addiction episode is kind of living in kind of like that grungy early 90s space. And then, you know, your finale is, you know, a little bit of a, without giving too much away, kind of existing in like that monster movie-ish kind of universe. But like, yeah, so, and that was something Francesco had kind of devised from the start of like, it's all a cohesive show, and the connective tissue is the Reddit, you know, for the No Sleep forum. But the individual episodes are going to be unique and are going to give a wide, you know, breadth of that horror genre, because we both love all these subgenres. And you know, the bummer of doing a movie is you kind of have to stick to one. But when you have 6 episodes, you're like, well, I can play in all these now. I can play with all of these tropes, you know.
And that's the thing with the show is like a lot of shows give you a lookbook and you have to follow this, and like this is the you know, the way it's shot. Like if you watch like a Mr. Robot, it's like very unnerving, awkward kind of camera angles to give you like anxiety and like get into set. Like our thing was like the tone of the script has to be adhered to, but like how you visually achieve that is kind of up to the directors, which makes it fun. And to John's point, like I think, you know, horror is such a rich genre that it's kind of absurd to give it one genre. There's so many things like within it. And like, if we get a, a season 2, like we'd love to do a zombie episode, love to do a werewolf episode, love to do like, there's so many things you can do with it. So if we get that runway, I'd love to do as many different kind of subgenres of horror until we kind of run out of ideas. So I think and there's also even like mashups too, right? Which is super cool.
There is this thing that like, as I'm watching them, I'm like, the stories are all so different, and everybody's like take on their, like how they create their story feels different or visualize their story. But there is like these societal messages in each story, which I thought was cool. Like when you were just describing each story, it's funny because I didn't like think about it from such a like removed way, but I'm like, yeah, all right, that's the premise. But like as I'm watching them, I'm like, these are like societal like messages. And like, the body horror episode kind of talks about, women's rights and like a lot of different themes. And we have like that, the shallowness kind of talking about how like technology is so addicting, and how it's kind of like just takes away our entire like persona and personality. There's so many different themes. I just thought it was like the stories that you guys chose, I thought was like, I felt like there was intention, like just to look for things like that, and like find 6 very different types of messages, but they all have like real content in them. So I thought it was so great. But the other thing that's really impressive is how much you pack in 30 minutes. So like, you think about storytelling in a 30-minute episode, you have to have some character development, but that's got to go quick. You got the whole plot line. You have some stories where there's background that you're getting in. Like, there was just so much. Was that a challenge to get that much story into 25 to 30 minutes?
Yeah, without getting into all the politics and stuff of how we got this thing funded, we had stipulations that it had to be between like 25 to 31. We would love if we get a second season to have a hard 30, because I'm glad we had longer for Joe's up, because we definitely needed it with that subject matter. But I think a lot of them could have stretched a little longer. And that's probably, if I had one criticism of the show, would be we just wish we could have let it breathe a little bit more.
Sure.
Because it's so jam-packed.
I want to say Toby and John Adams episode might have been the shortest. I think theirs ran 24, if I remember correctly. But it was interesting because that story had so much in it that it's like, how did you get that into 24 minutes? I was like so impressed as I'm watching it. It's like that story felt like I was watching for an hour, and then I looked at the time and like only 24 minutes has gone by. It's crazy.
Yeah, that's the product of 16 drafts winnowing to there isn't a wasted second in those episodes. The other thing too is, Francesco, we should talk about the sourcing of the stories and like some of the thematic stuff we were trying to work in, because I think that's important.
I think I'm glad you guys picked up on it from watching it, because John and my motto is like, I think art has to have a message. I think it's super important. At least that's the type of art that I like consuming. Now some of our episodes beat you over the head with it, like Carrie, or I think you could say Starlight is a little bit more direct in the message. Some of it's not kind of as upfront. But the idea was like, John and I love Twilight Zone, so wanted to have like that social commentary aspect of it. And the idea was like, if you're paying attention, there's a message there. If you don't pick it up, it still has to be entertaining. Like, the episode can't just be the message for all of them. We do have that a little bit with Pro-Life and Starlight, but I think some of them it's more in the subtext. But we tried to infuse kind of social commentary into every episode, which we think is kind of an interesting way to do anthology. Because personally, like, my Mount Rushmore is Twilight Zone and Black Mirror, and I think both of those do that like incredibly well while still making it entertaining. So that was a big part of it. And when we sourced the stories, like, we had like, I don't know, 24 creepy stories like a couple of years ago, and I just said to John, like, I'm gonna go off for like 18 months and just read No Sleeps, and I'll call you when I'm done, and then we're gonna curate this down. And we got it. I read like, I think over 2,000, and we got it down to like,
how many people were reading them with you? Because I was actually going to ask you that.
Just me.
Just
yeah.
oh man.
That's the one
Wow.
thing. That's the one thing I'm like a little, like a little anal about with the show is that
Mm,
it's a collaborative, creative process on every aspect of it. And John is a big part of the creative vision for the show. But when it comes to like what we're gonna adapt, I don't know, man, like making television, like this is a 5-year journey. So
Yeah.
for me, it's got to be like the story has to be something so compelling that I'm gonna spend 5 years on this, right? So that's a big thing for me is that like we looked at a couple things like is it a something I've never seen before, or maybe something I've seen before done in a different way? Does it have a gut punch ending? Is there opportunity to inject character or theme into it? And those were kind of the four things. And then the tricky thing is sometimes we'd have, you know, five great, let's say, you know, creepy doll stories, right? And it's like, well, we can't do every episode's a creepy doll episode. So you kind of whittle it down to one kind of subgenre of horror. So it took a lot of like whittling. And then I'm a big believer in like every episode is an ingredient in the soup. So the six together have to feel like it's we've not spoiled the broth, so to speak.
Yeah.
Sometimes putting one episode in would mean another one kind of comes out. And we actually had, it still bothers me about this, we had a ghost story that I still think is a phenomenal script that we've pushed to season 2 just because we didn't think we could execute it at the level that we need to. So fingers crossed we get a season 2. But yeah, there was a lot of work put into how we kind of group the kind of anthology together and kind of curate it.
And I think Francesco deserves a ton of credit for being the ultimate curator because the like I have access a read only access to a spreadsheet of all of the stories he read
Yeah.
dating back to like 2010, and it's truly like horrifying. You know, and I think there was a hot minute there where we were like, maybe we need help, and we tried to bring in another guy to like read stories, and that like very quickly did not work out. And it was like, no, like the arbiter of quality in terms of the
mm,
stories we're adapting really has to be Francesco. And then I think the other thing is to speak to the theme of it all. Some of the stories, it was great because they came with theme intact, right? Like, I mean, the episode Carrie is based on a story called Pro-Life, which, you know, obviously it's wearing its theme in its title.
Yeah. Yeah.
There were others that we kind of had to infuse the theme a little bit, where it was a really, really great scary story. And you're like, okay, like how do we find a way in where like this is saying something like, you know, kind of unique and societally interesting. And I think a big part of the reason why I think Francesco mentioned earlier, like we're big fans of Black Mirror, and you know, there's a lot of, you know, pride that we have in being able to give you your money's worth, but on top of that, give you a little bit extra. But I will say, I remember the first movie we did together, kind of like you have that realization where you're like, oh, there's like a bunch of people in the middle of like cabin country in Northern Ontario filming this movie I wrote. I probably should have made sure I had something to say before we did that, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So with the show, it was like, let's make sure we have something to say with every
Yeah.
single one of the episodes.
I definitely think that was achieved.
Yeah.
I actually heard a rumor that Francesco read so many stories that he can no longer learn new information. Is that accurate? His brain is actually full.
John will be reading all of these too. Yeah, my brain's
Yeah.
Cool. Good luck, John.
yeah.
Thanks, appreciate it.
Yeah.
So I think it's really cool though, you know, because I'm not really heavy on Reddit, but like a lot of my coworkers are, you know what I mean? So I had talked to a few of them. I'm like, have you ever heard of like the no sleep thread? And they're just like, yeah. And I'm just like, oh, okay, cool. Well, because I just was able to check out like some of the projects that they were able to turn into you know, short films, like you know, for their new show that's coming out. And they're just like, wow, really, you were able to see it? Like, how was it? And I'm just like, well, if you're a fan of like the stories, and I think that you'll be happy because I think they definitely knocked it out of the park and let them know that it's going to be on Screambox. So you have a lot of people waiting on this project. Like, how does it feel for you guys to like go into this project with, you know, like we said, about 18 million subscriptions, subscribers and everything like that? How does it feel for you guys to like, you know, get something like this made?
It's super exciting, to be honest with you. It's also slightly terrifying. I think
Yeah.
there's expectations about how good this needs to be because I was talking to a friend the other day and he said to me, I heard you did a no sleep show thing and I used to read it.
Mm.
And he goes, which ones? And I named 6 of them and he had read 2.
Oh
And I
wow.
was just like, oh shit,
Yeah.
like there is expectations here
Yeah.
around this stuff. And I think the biggest thing for us is that the writers have all seen them. There's an episode of the podcast with No Sleep coming out next week where we interview the first writer, and they seem to be really happy with the work. So that
Cool.
was super important for us. I think also though, and John, you could probably speak to this too, is like we tried hard to be authentic to the original story. Like it's always tricky when you're adapting it for the screen, but like, you know, the black square in the first episode, like my teaser trailer originally had, you know, clouds in the square or whatever, and I was like afraid to like feel the need to make it visually interesting. But if you actually read that original No Sleep, there's a linked image of what it looks like. And the idea of it just being a dead pixel is creepy as hell.
Yeah.
And we tried to just stick with that. And we're like, don't change any of it. So we tried to hold on to what are the most disturbing or kind of like most authentic parts of the story. Even talking with Rebecca Klingel about Betsy the doll, she called me when she read the script and was just like, you didn't change the ending. Like you didn't have to change that. Like that was like you didn't get in trouble for that. I was like, no, we weren't gonna make it if that's what we weren't gonna do. Hopefully that's not a spoiler, but yeah, we tried to keep it like as authentic to the community as possible because I think there's a responsibility there. I feel like we're guests representing other people's work and we need to do it responsibly.
That's awesome.
And I think
I
it's important too. The other piece of that is like the ultimate goal for us is we want people who are readers of the subreddit to be happy. But even if you're not a fan of the subreddit, my ultimate goal would be you watch the short or you watch the episode and are like, oh, I want to go check that story out now.
Yeah.
Right. Like if we can bring more people, if we can bring somebody in and be like, oh, I want to go read, you know, I really enjoyed the episode Into the Unknown. I want to read every story Matthew Dymersky, the author of the kind of that original Reddit post, has written. Like that's a win for us, right? Because we love these. So the more people we can bring to them as well is going to be huge. Yeah.
And it also brings more attention to these stories in general, which will make people excited if you guys are greenlit for a second season. You know, they'll want to see what ones. It's kind of like when, you know, the creepypasta stuff for originally, like a few stories came out of that, then everyone got really interested in creepypastas and wanted to see more adapted. So it's a win-win on both sides, I guess. So, you know, it's a really genius kind of like, you know, marketing plan, I guess you would say, for everyone involved.
Yeah, we are the snake eating our own tail.
Nah, that's cool. Like we said, you know, the threads and the stories come from established writers and even first-time authors. Like we said, you had Joe and Toby, even some of the other creators. What was it like working with everyone else, just to get this done?
We had the best team, honest to God. Like John and I did not deserve the crew that we had as our directors we had. I think we had some of the best cinematographers, which I think if anyone watches the show, you'll see it immediately with Marty and Scott. All the crew up north was fantastic. Justin and his team on production design was amazing. The actors, we casted the hell out of this, and I think we had a great great cast. And I'm really proud as a Canadian guy that we used a lot of Canadians, and it still turned out really well. But the big privilege I think that we had, or specifically for me, is that I got to watch another director direct before I would direct every episode as the showrunner. So it'd be like you go in with a plan and you watch Joe Lynch and you'd be like, oh, okay, I'm gonna do something differently on this episode. And then I would watch Maritte and watch the Adams, and you get to pick up things as you go. And I think it was funny. Like I had some nice feedback from the crew that like the pace I was able to move at and the confidence I had with the crew exponentially changed between the first episode and the second episode because I got to watch Joe in between. And I think that was one of the blessings of the show. I feel like I got, 5 years of film school in 2 months. just because of the amazing directors we had. They also they're just fantastic collaborators. Like, I don't think, John, we had a single argument with a director about a note or something. Like, it was like such a blessing to just, watch them cook and, maybe make the odd suggestion here or there, but there's not anything in the show that I can honestly say that like we're not happy with or anything like that. Like, we had such great collaborative partners, and everyone was there to try to, do their best to elevate the work. Like, working with Joe on the look of the inside of this, I shouldn't spoil it, but the look of the kind of sci-fi world that he built was like tons of storyboarding and discussions, and it was such a great process. And then, if I showed you some of the Adams episode before we kind of put the gloss on it of the girl's imagination, like, you'd be blown away of what like it looked like pre and post. And that was a ton of work with them and kind of their executing their creative vision. And the composers as well. It was amazing. Like, we had worked with Alex Cuervo, we worked with Steve Moore, who was like a blessing. We got to work with one of my favorite band's guitarists. We worked with Wade from Alexis on Fire, did Fixed Frequency. And Di Hexon was amazing too. So we just like, I could not have like asked for a better team that we pulled together. We had a really cool set of guys on really every department.
Yeah, we lucked out, I think. And like, what's cool too is like, I don't know if you guys have seen like In a Violent Nature at all.
Yeah.
It's an amazing movie written and directed by Chris Nash, who also did a bunch of puppeteering work and like built like a body pit for us. Like, it was like before that movie came out, he was just like, I'll I'll work on your show. No big problem. But like, and there's kind of cool stuff like the Steve Kostansky's team, the guys that do like The Void and like Psycho Gorman and stuff like that. They did a bunch of our prosthetics as well. So like, our prosthetics game was probably hitting well above our weight, if we're being honest. Like, so we feel really blessed about the crew. And I think to Francesco's point, the biggest thing is just everyone was super nice. Like, there was not you hear horror stories, from sets, and like Francesco and I have been in situations where we're like, oh, this is very no bueno, for whatever reason. But like, like this set was, it was everyone was super chill. It was a really great working experience.
It was also fun too, because it was like we were shooting a new movie every week. Like, it was just really cool to like go from a drug den to a church to an apartment complex. Like, it was just like, because John and I were running split shift on show running, and like, I would come off directing an episode and then go see a set that was built the next day, and it'd be like, holy crap, like we're gearing up for this one tomorrow. And it was the team's ability to just pivot. Like, we would shoot an episode while prepping another one at the same time. So their ability to like build an entirely different world while we're still trying to execute on one was it was a lot, but they did an amazing job.
Not sure we would advise doing it that way again, for your sanity and your sleep. But but like, it was like kind of a dope experience.
One thing that like, I just want to reiterate this idea that like all these stories are so different. But the thing that I think that makes a really successful kind of like anthology project is when the stories can have all these different settings, be completely different, but yet still feel like they're part of the same project. Even when you're having different people creating it. And that's what I really enjoyed. Each episode felt like I was still watching Tales from the Void, even though it like had nothing to do with the previous episode I just watched. So I really want to like just, emphasize how like much I feel like you guys really created and like knocked that one out of the park as far as like keeping these stories feeling like they're part of Tales from the Void and not completely separate projects.
That is the greatest compliment we could receive on the show, because that's literally what's kept me up all night for like years, is like, is it going to feel cohesive? It's the toughest thing, right? And it's a feeling. It's not like it's not a look. It's not like, it's a feeling that the show gives you, right? And that was my favorite thing about Black Mirror too, is it's a feeling. Like, it's tough to put your finger on why it feels a certain way, and I think it's because it comes from Charlie Brooker, right? Like it comes from his, like, it's all birthed by him. So I think having, like, I feel like I'm sound like a diva being like, it just has to be my mind on the curation, but I think it has to be singular in how you put it together, because it at least in my opinion, even Twilight Zone, right? Like all the great anthologies was like one voice and curation. Otherwise, I think it kind of jumps all over the place. And sometimes that's okay too. Like I think you have like I really like Creepshow. I think Creepshow has like that comedy tone, but it does, you know, jump around quite a bit. And I like Creepshow a lot though, right? And I enjoyed you know, Tales from the Crypt was a big one for me growing up as well. So
yeah.
And thank you for the kind words, Dave, because I will actually get to sleep tonight now.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like, oh, okay, all right. We achieved the mission a little bit. Yeah.
The other thing I really want to like emphasize to people who haven't watched this yet is like, this is also a cool way to see some of the known directors. Like if you're a fan of Joe Lynch, you get to see Joe Lynch do something very different, in my opinion. Like that wasn't the story that I was like, I wouldn't have watched that if I didn't know Joe Lynch was, you know, the director on that. I wouldn't have watched it later and said, oh yeah, that's a Joe Lynch thing. I didn't. Like I felt like it was something different for him, and it was cool. The same with the Toby and John Adams. Like their story was very different than other stories I've seen them do. So I thought that was cool that people also that were like attached got to flex and try something different and something outside of maybe their own box. Maybe that was fun for them. I would assume that would be fun.
I think that was a big part of why we got some of the directors to join the team, is like we let them pick the ones they wanted.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right. And Joe wanted to try sci-fi, and you know, we didn't do any of like, you've done this type of movie, so like you're gonna do this type of episode. The one thing I will say is like I felt very comfortable with the Adams doing an episode that was like mainly in the woods, because I'm like a lot of they know where to put the camera like intuitively there. But outside of that, like even, you know, Marty's episode, Carrie, like she's done nothing like that. And I think she killed it. Like, so yeah, they all did such an amazing job, you know, building a world for us.
Yeah. And I think the thing too was like, you know, the size of the show was quite small. So at no point were we like, we're gonna make you rich directing an episode of this TV show. But we were like, we're gonna let you do some crazy weird shit, and we're not gonna put a ton of restraints on you. So, you know, feel free to have fun. And I think that was our big, you know, draw on our pitch.
Sure.
Yeah. Now, with you guys reading so many stories, like, do you have like ones that are on the top of the list for season 2 if it gets greenlit?
Oh yeah, dude, I got it right here. I literally have it.
I got them right.
Like, I got it right next to me, man.
See, that's the benefit of reading 2,000 stories. You probably have like 5 seasons lined up, I'm sure.
Well, we're trying to keep it open because I think my tracker goes 2011 to 2020, I think.
Okay.
So I got 4 years of reading to catch up on, and then we have an open forum on our website, and we read everything that comes in because we want people that, you know, enjoy the show to have a chance to be in it. But we've got some interesting stuff that we're looking at for next season. There's some there's genre. I don't want to spoil anything. There's genres of horror that we didn't touch at all this season, and ones that I think are much more ambitious. I think we tried to give every episode the same amount of resources to be fair to like all the directors. And I think there might be some next season that we try to go like super big with a couple concepts. So we're excited about it. But yeah, there's definitely a catalog that we've got kind of in the hopper.
What you just said before too, though, is like, if you're listening and you even have considered writing horror, like how exciting is that to hear someone say like, oh, if you watch this and you enjoyed the show, you could also throw in a story and take a stab at trying to, you know, possibly getting your story adapted. So I think that's kind of a cool concept that you have going now. People know where they can put their work, and maybe you'll like it. Maybe you'll like it enough to say, I think we could adapt that and that would fit in Tales from the Void. So that's kind of awesome.
Thanks, man. That's like, we're writers too, right? So we wanted to kind of do something that like gives back. And I think like a lot of my inspiration for getting into screenwriting came from that form. So I owe a lot to it. So I think we want to be supportive of people that are writing cool stuff. And I'm really proud of the fact that like some of the episodes are, you know, Rebecca Klingel is a big writer and, you know, wrote for kind of Haunting at Hill House, and she's gone on to big things. And Manin's done lots of stuff for the No Sleep podcast. But like, there are stories in our anthology that someone posted 3 paragraphs on the internet when they were 15, and it's an episode television now.
That's
So
so cool.
it can come from anywhere. So yeah, our kind of ears are always in the ears and eyes, I guess, are always in the forum, kind of listening and watching for it.
Awesome.
Now, have you guys thrown any of your stories in there? You know, just putting it out there, just having fun at times, or no?
I think John has, no?
Yeah, so when Francesco was like, "Hey, we're gonna do a show based on Reddit No Sleep," I was like, I should probably make sure that I know what I'm doing here. So I have written 2 No Sleep stories. One was very well received. The other, you know, died a slow death in the ether. So it's a hit or miss. So yeah, no, I took a couple cracks at it. It's super fun. The way that I kind of played with it was, I was like, I mean, I you know, work as a screenwriter first and foremost, but my thing was like, well, if I have an idea that just wouldn't adapt to screen very well, then I would, you know, kind of go and like, well, okay, how do I explore this from a first person narrative POV and try to do it as an R No Sleep? And then I've had kind of 2 that sparked interest and I threw on there. But yeah, I've done it. I'm not gonna, you know, probably write, you know, 500 of them. I will never be as good as Mon and Lysette is, who wrote the story that Fixed Frequency is based on.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm not quitting my day job because I can't compete there. But yeah, it is a super fun forum. Super fun.
That's cool.
And I usually write longer stuff, so I kind of don't post it on the forum because I like the short form aspect of the form. There's a lot of people that do 20 chapter books and get a book deal or get a TV show, and I think that's kind of shifted the form to longer format. But I always enjoyed, like, on my phone at, you know, before bed, 5 No Sleeps Tonight, and you could get through 5 different stories there. You know, you'd always find 1 or 2 that were like really cool. So I've just always enjoyed that format. So yeah, I unfortunately, my writing, I've enjoyed expanding on what's there to make it into television. But I love like the snackable horror stuff.
Very cool. So why don't you tell our listeners each where they can follow you, follow your future projects, anything like that? Are you guys on social media? All that. I'm
at fl.film on Twitter and Instagram. You can find out about the show at talesfromthevoid.tv or Tales from the Void TV on social media. And we will be streaming on Screambox and on Super Channel with more channels coming soon. We just made John an Instagram account, I think yesterday, because our crew has been protesting about it.
Yeah.
Who's running it?
Yeah, so Marty, our DP, who's a fantastic guy, was just like, yeah, I'm sick of not being able to tag you in photographs on Instagram. So I'm making an Instagram account, putting a picture of you on it, and then just handing you the keys. So I now have an Instagram. It's called at J Thomas Kelley. And right now there's just pictures of hummus on there.
You use hummus online. It's a new thing. Giving up on film reviews, and it's hummus now.
Yeah, it's just hummus. Yeah, I think the bio is 25% screenwriter, 75% half-eaten like sriracha hummus. You know.
Oh my god.
But yeah, no, maybe someday I'll post something other than hummus on there. So
okay,
there you go. See, that's why we didn't have the connection. See, we're heavily on social media, and you're not there. See, that's why. Toby put us together, so it all worked out.
Yeah, I was completely absent.
I send carrier pigeons whenever I need to get a hold of John.
John, if you come to our movie nights, I think the food provider there, Screaming Unicorn, I think they make a hummus actually.
There you go.
Serve, so you might be in luck.
Yeah, you're speaking my language, Dave. Yeah. So yeah, I was gonna say you guys are doing the October 11th. So my wife's never seen Trick or Treat.
Okay.
And I was just like, I got some good news for you. I was like, you can see Trick or Treat and Halloween 3 back to back at Buttonwood Brewery. Like, yeah, so we're going down there. It's gonna be super exciting.
I can't wait.
See you guys. Yeah.
I can't wait. And Francesco, when you come back to Rhode Island at some point and he actually takes you out to eat, then we got to let us know so we can link up.
For sure, definitely. I've heard there's good breweries out there
Yes.
that I'll have to check out for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. So everybody listening, make sure you look out for Tales from the Void. As mentioned, October 13th through the 27th, we said. It's going to be on Screambox. So if you're not a subscriber to Screambox, make sure you get on that. But also you'll be able to check it out other places following that release on Screambox. I do think everybody's going to be really pleasantly surprised. And it is like perfect timing right before Halloween, leading up to Halloween, actually. So that is so amazing. Thank you guys both for joining us. This was a great conversation. And I'm glad we all got to meet finally. So
thanks so much, guys. Nice meeting you.
Yeah, thank you guys. This was really delightful. We appreciate it.
Awesome. All right, everybody. We'll be back next week with a new episode. Thank you for listening. Have a good night.